Welcome to the Master Your Millions podcast, the show all about your financial potential and leaving a legacy for future generations. Here are your hosts, Jason and Scott Henderson.
Welcome back, everyone. I am your host, Scott Henderson, and my co-host is Dr. J. We are experienced investors with a huge advantage of over 100 years of wisdom and experience in investing. We're super excited for our guest today. Jason, who do we have coming on?
Well, believe it or not, we have another Dr. J that actually goes by Dr. J occasionally, and a good friend of mine. We've known each other a long time. Not even sure how long we've known each other, for the fact that our dads were friends for decades. But let me just introduce you really quick. This is Dr. Jason West. He is a renowned physician and author and speaker. He's the fourth generation West to run the West Clinic in Idaho, which will be 107 years of old this coming January. Do not let the location of Idaho fool you. The West Clinic has patients that travel literally from all around the world to be treated there. He's a two-time Doctor of the Year award winner. He's a father of 5 boys and is married to Maxine, probably his better half, and certainly the boss from what I have seen. He is launching a syndicated radio program called America's Healer, which is syndicated on 7 platforms, including Sirius XM and iHeartRadio, and it will be airing every Friday at 12 p.m. I believe that launches on December 2nd. Welcome, Dr. West. We're so pleased to have you here with us.
Jason, Scott, thanks for having me.
We want to know a little bit about your journey. Now, we've had a lot of other people that have been more like investors and things. Dr. West is one of these guys that is a lifelong learner. In his particular field, he's required to have, I'm not sure how many CE credits a year. He does like 10 times that. He is constantly sponging in information, learning, and along the way has tried a lot of different businesses, if you will. He's been an entrepreneur in a lot of different ways around his clinic, so to speak, this along the same lines, and yet has done really well in some areas and not so well in other areas. So tell us a little bit, why did you go into the family business?
Well, it was a fascinating journey doing that, because I didn't always plan to do that. Like, I was a little boy, I was had an awesome dad that was my hero. I'm like, I just want to do what he does. And so then I thought, all right, I'm just going to follow that pathway. So my dad was really into alternative medicine, was kind of a legend in his own time as a chiropractor in Pocatello, Idaho, a little railroad town. And most of my life I was, okay, that's what I want to do. And then I got into college and I thought, I think I want to go into traditional medicine. So I dabbled in that for a little bit. Then at one time to be a professor. I just want to teach, what I'm learning. And those were kind of about a year apart. I'm going to go into medical school. Then I'm going to go to, I want to be in the university environment. And then my wife showed up, and it made me grow up really, really fast, because I'm like, wow, I've got someone that I need to take care of. We're a team. And when I say take care of, like, I think that I take care of her, but I know that the only reason where I am is because of her. It reminds me of that story of the lady that, the really successful guy that goes to his college, or it's just high school reunion. And he's walking down the hall and he looks over and he sees the janitor, and he says to his wife, hey, it wasn't that your old boyfriend? Look what you've married. And she turned to him and said, hey, if I would have married him, he would be where you are and you would be the janitor. So I married someone that was like, hey, we need to create something. And then I'm like, hey, I do really respect and admire my dad. So I went into this pathway, and the path that I'm also in business. And matter of fact, my wife will tell people when they say, well, what kind of doctor is your husband? She'll say, well, he's a doctorpreneur. And so it's a kind of a doctor entrepreneur thing, because my world in alternative medicine, in doing acupuncture and chiropractic, functional medicine, stuff like that, it's a little bit different from the traditional medical approach. And my dad, when I came into practice, my dad sat down and gave me a lesson. He's like, hey, I just need to tell you what's happening. when I went into practice, it was really, you just need to get good clinical outcomes. And then all of a sudden we developed managed care, and we've got insurance, and we've got all of these different factors. And he said, you need to be just as good a businessman as you are a doctor, or you're not going to make it. And so that was like right after that was in 2000, I started practice. So it's been 22 years, and it's been the roller coaster. So I've got awesome failures, and I have some awesome successes, and I've survived myself. And luckily, because my advisor slash, wife has been in there saying that we need to do it. Like, luckily I'm successful, but it hasn't been smooth sailing.
So that's pretty cool. As we talk about on this podcast often about having a team around you as far as getting to success. And it sounds like the MVP, so to speak, on your team is Maxine.
Oh, for sure.
Gone there all the time. So I don't want to drudge up past bad memories. However, I'd like for you to share with us a time or two when you've actually fallen and skinned your knee, metaphorically speaking, in business or in something. And so people know that it's okay to fail, and that what you had learned from those failures.
So just a real quick career pathway for doctors or a healthcare provider. I would say this for everybody, but for me, I've recognized, like, no matter what field you're in, you're always selling something, right? Like you're selling a service or you're selling a product. And so the first like metamorphosis that occurred for me was, it's okay to be in sales. Like, I think this is really important, especially for doctors. They're like, oh, sales is beneath me. My team does sales, or if you can't, go through school, you end up being a salesman. Well, that's who makes all the money, right? Like, is the salesman. But that was a big shift. But kind of going back through my career, I think you start off, like, I got out of school and the first thing was, oh, okay, God, please let me be busy. Well, it doesn't matter what field you're in. It's easy to be busy. Any service that you have, if you devalue yourself and you give everything away and say, I'm going to have a free clinic, I'm going to have a free insurance service, I'm going to have a free muffler shop, I'm going to have a free electrical thing, like, you can be really busy. And then the next phase is, okay, please, God, let me be profitable. So you got to design in, okay, how can I actually, and I tell this to my team all the time, like, what's the number one function of the office? Is number one, to be profitable. And then number 1A is to deliver health and change people's lives. But they're linked like this. It's not bad to have one or the other. We got to deliver and have a good outcome, but we also have to be profitable. So please, God, let me be busy. Please let me be profitable. And then the next phase for me was like, please give me time. So if I have this wonderful business opportunity where I'm helping people and I'm making good money, and then I'm like my wife's a perfect example. She's like, all right, well, I want to go travel. And I was like, okay, well, you should, like, why don't you get your wife, or excuse me, your mom or your sister, and like, you want to go to England, you want to go to South America, like, you should totally go. And then her little whip was quivering, and she's like, well, I want to go with you. And I'm like, I can't leave. Like, I got a machine over here. Like, they're like, the people are sick. Like, I can't go anywhere. And then she said to me is, hey, Jason, like, I didn't sign up for that. Like, you figure it out. Like, you need to take me somewhere. And luckily, like, an example is working with you and having some other things. Like, we're going to Florida tonight to spend my son's in a double doctor program in Tampa Bay, Florida. And we're going there for a week. And I wouldn't even have thought that was possible when we started. So please let me be busy. Please let me be proper. Please give me time. And then the fourth one is, okay, how can I scale and have a legacy and a reach? And for me, translation is how can you develop reoccurring revenue? How can you get your money to work for you and some other things so that you can have a legacy and reach? And of course, none of this was taught in graduate school. None of it was taught in a doctoral program. I mean, I can remember my teacher saying to me, okay, you got to be really careful, to limit yourself to, like, you shouldn't probably see more than 40 people a day. And you got to be careful with taking your wheelbarrow to the bank with all of the money in it. Like, that was the kind of the idea that they taught you in school. And then I had to recognize, and I'm not making a disparaging comment about teachers, but I'm like, oh, well, that's why they're teaching, because, like, they don't know how it is. And I can remember sitting in the class. I graduated with a class of 121 people. And I can remember sitting in graduation ceremonies, looking down at everybody in their caps and gowns, thinking, wow, why would Mrs. Smith come to see me versus 121 other people? And then it's even more daunting when you recognize it's the family practice, it's the urgent care, it's the chiropractors, massage therapists, physical therapists, nutrition, like everybody out there is trying to get those people to come into the office. And so I remember in that graduation ceremony in December of 2020 of thinking, I've got to figure out a really good delivery system to help people. And I've got to be really good at marketing, and I better run things or it's not going to be good. So when your original question was, how did you skin your knee? Well, it was worse than that. Like, it was borderline, like, I'm never going to make it. I shouldn't have even done this. So I started a mobile clinic system in 2001. And the idea was, I'm going to go out to these companies and I'm going to help them reduce their medical costs by giving them better, healthy options for their employees to be healthier and not need surgeries and not need prescriptions and stuff like that. And I'm going to create this awesome, convenient delivery system. And so I went out and got a 48-foot NASCAR trailer. I turned it into a mobile clinic system. I got a Dodge pop truck on the front, and I would drive it around to companies. And I got some really good traction about it. And matter of fact, we started growing so fast that I thought, oh, I'm going to franchise this. So I went and developed a uniform franchise offering circular. I'm going to sell out territories. I'm going to teach other doctors how to do this. And I literally, I didn't have the experience. I didn't have the capital. I just had tons of drive. And I didn't go bankrupt, but I was like, for a long time, like, the company that was organized got a little bit top heavy. We weren't having the revenue coming in to support the salaries and some other things that we needed, or the compensation. And then I sold out some areas that I couldn't really deliver on. And it was just tough. Almost went bankrupt. And I can remember having about $300,000 on credit cards, and my wife saying, look, maybe today is the day that we're going to go bankrupt. Like, maybe we should just clean the slate. Just, all right, we're done. We'll start over. And I'm like, nope, we're gonna figure this out. So we buckled down, and we worked really hard and got into practice, started putting in controls inside the practice, designing the patient experience, getting A players to come in to be involved inside of our clinic system, and got out of underneath that. It took us about 5 years or 6 years to really feel like that we could breathe. And then my dad sold me the practice, and he was kind of funny because my dad was super successful, but his rule was, when I took over the practice, never talk to him about numbers or the books or anything like that. You can't do that. And it was a perfect example of someone being successful because they were so awesome at delivering healthcare, and he didn't care about the business at all. And then having that transition, making some really good decisions as far as, hey, let's making this the best place to work. And then if we do that with our employees, then we can have a really good patient experience. And started feeling really good, started getting everything paid off, had a nice amount of money in the bank, started the infinite banking system, which gave me some really nice resources, and being able to not have to go to organizations for loans and stuff, and got a little bit too big for my britches, and started a satellite office 3 hours south of me in Salt Lake, and thought, I'm going to just scale this. I'm going to go develop 100 or 200 brick and mortar systems, and didn't have business controls involved in that. And so when I say business controls, if I was in Idaho, my office did really, really well. Utah suffered. If I was in Utah did really good, but Idaho suffered. And trying to figure out, well, I've done a really good job of building up my personal brand, but not necessarily my clinic brand. And almost went under again. Like, it was in 2018, 19, it was bad. I had all this capital that vanished, and literally was wondering, well, maybe it's time to, maybe I should go through bankruptcy. And we never did. And luckily I had one of my patients that had been through some business wars, that I had really helped him with a healthcare condition. And he's like, hey, Jason, let me just tell you what you need to do. Like, you just need to stay in your lane. Like you have such a neat thing that you've developed in this little railroad town. Like, you just need to focus on that. And I can remember telling him, Brandon, that's not going to work. Like, you don't understand how deep this hole is. And he's like, no, you don't understand. Like, if you just stayed there and worked on your core business. And then I did. 2 years later, totally have recovered from that. Had the opportunity to buy a really neat piece of ground that just went crazy exponential in value, and give my wife a little bit of breathing room and some other stuff, because we were building up some assets, and now we're on the top of the mountain again, and I'm determined to stay there and stay in my lane. So there's a quick, going through and here's, as weird as it sounds, I'm really grateful for those lessons that I did. I've been really aggressive in business. I think I have a really high emotional bank account that I'm willing to try things. Like, that's part of my DNA. Like, I want to innovate, not only in practice, but I'm willing to take a gamble on some business things, practice things, treatment things. And I'm grateful for those experiences, but man, that was horrible going through those.
It sounds like it. However, what you say, though, you've risen each time you've been knocked down, and that's whether it's in medicine, functional medicine, or real estate, or anything. That's really the key. So I know of countless, and I mean, I don't know, you post them a lot on Facebook and things, some successes that you've had with patients. Would you say that people seem like they spend their life trying to gain money and then spend their money trying to get their health back? Or there's a saying there. I'm sure you've experienced that. Huh?
Sorry, you trade your health for wealth, and then trade your wealth for health. So it's like, and I've seen this happen with so many entrepreneurs. Myself, I've successfully worked myself sick a couple times, but particularly business owners and entrepreneurs in type A personalities, like, they have the idea that, hey, I can create anything, I can do anything, and they sacrifice their health for wealth. And then when they have money and their body starts to fall apart, because this happens so often, then they literally exchange their wealth for health. And so it's that catch-22 cycle.
Right. And that's one of the reasons they need to come and see you along the way. So they're making sure they're taking care of their health. You've had countless patients that they're success stories. I know of one guy that came to your clinic. You were able to turn his health around, and he was literally scheduled to have his leg or foot amputated, and you were able to turn his health around to where he's fine and walking. It didn't lose his limb. Would you please share with us a couple of, I don't know, kind of near and dear to your heart success stories that you've had with people?
Well, yes, of course. To set the table on that, I have to tell you some of the lessons that I think, it doesn't matter which industry it is. I believe that the universe asks you for payment. And the payment is whether you're going to be a successful investor, or whether you're going to be a successful professor or a doctor or anything. Like, you've got to pay your dues. You got to grind. And this is one of the lessons that I'm trying to tell my 5 sons, is like, pick an industry and then recognize, like, you got to go over and pay the price tag of whatever that industry success measure is. In healthcare, it's 4 years of butt time in undergrad, and then your graduate program, and then it's your specialty, and then it's the real world. So when we get these success stories, like, I can remember sitting in the office in the early 2000s, my dad, who had all the patients in the world and was really comfortable in his own skin, and saying, Dad, I picked the wrong career pathway. Like, and one of the things I'm fascinated about is learning these different specialties on courage, on health, on vitamins, on investing and everything. There's these lessons. And my dad's lesson to me was, hey, Jason, you need to learn and pay your dues. Like, the difference between you and me is, I know that I can help people to be better. And you think you can get people to be better. And people know that. Like, 80% of communication is nonverbal. So, like, you're walking into a room and you're telling them the same thing I'm doing, but, like, you don't have conviction. And he would always say, you have to get to the no. And so I can remember him saying, look, you need to absolutely know you can help people. And the way to do that, it's 10,000 hours. It's the Malcolm Gladwell thing. Like you've got to, and once you know that you can help people, then it's a whole different ballgame. And I can remember going through these graduate programs and these continuing education programs, and they're teaching about, vitamin C infusion therapy, and they're talking about the Krebs cycle and the urea cycle and how these different vitamins and minerals affect that. And I'm thinking, man, I've already learned all this stuff. Like I learned it, I passed the test, I completed my boards. And then one day it clicked. And the guy that you're talking about, Jerry Ryan, when he came in and he had a crushed ankle and they were going to amputate it. And I'm like, well, I know how to fix that. And I'm going to fix it we're going to put a vitamin injection into your joint. We're going to give you this special, collagen peptides and stuff that's going to help. But we're going to remodel that joint. And I can remember when I told it to him, like, I really believe that. And he believed that too. And we had this amazing outcome. And now we have a practice full of patients that are looking for, like, I've tried all of these different doctors and these pathways, and I've tried chemotherapy, or I've tried radiation or prescription therapy, or I don't want another surgery. And being able to know that you can help people, like that's how you get the outcomes. And so many doctors will have, I just had this happen with a doctor from Louisiana. One of his patients came out, they came out for 3 weeks. They had a chronic neurologic problem. We had a fantastic response. The patient went back to Louisiana and the doctor called up and he said, "Hey, Jason, you tell me the protocol? Like, what did you do for that patient to make him better?" And I said, "Well, you're thinking that it's like baking a cake, 2 cups of flour, an egg, some oil, some baking soda, and you put it in the oven for 350 degrees for 15 minutes and it comes out the perfect cake." I'm like, that's not how it works. The way that you get good outcomes is that you treat the patient, you treat whatever's wrong there from a biochemistry and a biomechanics and a hormone level. And if you put those building blocks in place, then you get amazing outcomes. So we've had people that were scheduled for surgery. We've had a wheelchair to walking. We've had a lot of people with autoimmune like rheumatoid arthritis and lupus and Sjogren's disease, where their markers go to 0 because we put the body back in place and then the body heals itself. And so one of those statements that we have in the office is when people come in and people say, "Look, I have this serious condition," I always tell them, "Hey, Scott, you're not your diagnosis. Like, you're not the disease. Like, there's a person there, and then let's figure out how we can unravel it and balance things out." And so fortunately, over the last couple of years, I had a mentor in California that said, "Hey, the most important piece of equipment in your office is this, and it's your cell phone. And when people get a good outcome, like, you should ask to record it because it's therapeutic for them to tell their story, and it's therapeutic for other people to do that." And so I've been doing that, and we just crested over 1,000 testimonials for people that were out of hope and out of time and out of options. And we've got good options. And I wish I could say we fixed everybody that was come to the office like that. We haven't, but we fix most people. And when I say fix, like, if you give people what they need and then you get out of the way, like, people get better.
Love it. So let's go back. You mentioned a minute ago about that you started infinite banking concept. You started into that. Do you remember, or tell me what you remember about the first time I approached you about that? What were you thinking?
Well, I first thought, I don't have the education to like have a discussion with you, because I'm like, I don't know what he's talking about. Like, I knew, like, coming up, and you've said this to me many times, like growing up, my dad, who was really, really successful, would his solution to any money problems was to work harder and put more money into the bucket. And you were the first, financial guy that I talked to that said, "Well, what about the holes in your bucket? Like, you can keep putting it in, but like, what if there's holes in it?" And my simple thing was, okay, I'm just going to work really hard. I'm going to create assets, and I'm going to build up, the business, and I've tried to do a couple things, different things with recurring revenue. But when you said it, I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. Then you gave me, Nelson Nash's book, and I read the book, and then immediately I started thinking, well, this, like, if it's so good, how come everybody's not doing this? Which is really embarrassing for me to say, because this is what patients tell me. Like, they get out of the medical realm, right? And then they come over to the office and I'm telling them, "Oh, well, we can totally fix bone-on-bone arthritis, and we can totally fix type 2 diabetes, and we can we can really reverse autoimmune disease. And their response back to me is, well, if it was so good, how come everybody else isn't doing it? So like, I felt really hypocritical. You told me like this awesome financial thing. And I'm like, oh, but it can't work. It's too good to be true. And so we read the book. It took me, I don't know if you remember, it took almost 3 years after you told me about it. And then you would ask follow-up questions for me to be like, oh, okay, I guess I'm going to do something. And by the way,
You always said that you were busy, busy, busy. However, it seemed like to me it was a Thanksgiving Day that you read it.
yeah, I mean that sounds right. Like your job.
You had finally had some downtime and read it and called me. Are you able to meet with me tomorrow?
Well, when I decide to do something, usually I'm like, okay, I got to do it right away.
That's true. That's true.
So, and by the way, I do need to like tell people like the infinite baking has been really good for me. But I've also abused it too. And I think this is important, one, for me to own it, but for everybody to understand it, because you helped me get this awesome policy. We had some term policies. I felt like, this sounds horrible, but we had some term policies where like, well, I know if I die, my family is going to be okay. And literally the idea was, well, I better make, have a pathway for them, or I better have something better before that term runs out, because if it runs out and then I don't have anything, now we're really in trouble. And so, but we got a policy that I took basically my clinic float and I put it into the entire policy. And then I needed some money and I pulled all of it out, and then I couldn't service the policy. So I've had that bitter lesson of maybe biting off a little bit more than chewed. Now, luckily, you helped me to get into a policy that was more streamlined, and I've got one policy loan that I've used that I'm getting ready to pay back, but I have 2 policies, and it's awesome to know, hey, I've got 6 figures over there that if I ever need it, I can go get it. Like I can use it for financing or whatever else. And I've consciously made the decision of, I don't touch it, because I don't want to have, access it and then be like, great, I've got capital, and then use it. So I've been on that pathway too, but it took 3 years for me to figure it out. Then I was like, okay, I think I can do this. I think I can front end load this policy, develop some reserves, and then try to get out of the finance world. Like, nothing against bankers, but like, man, those guys, they've got it figured out. They turn you into a slave pretty quick. And I'm like, I don't want to be in slavery. And then after I got into it, I was like, wow, this is better than an IRA. This is better than a 401k. Like I can just load this policy up. And my accountant, who I met through you, we actually, on an exercise, we like, okay, like if we put money into this policy versus putting it into a traditional 401 or IRA, like, let's see what's going to happen out of this policy. And it dramatically outperforms the market. And so that was a really nice exercise for me to have the accountant say, hey, that's really good. Like that was really smart, that you should do that. And it's better than trying to do some, government subsidized thing where I'm loaning money to the government and I forgot exactly how he said it, but I'm putting money over to a plan that the government kind of controls, and then I get penalized for taking it out. And he was saying, Jason, that your withdrawal from retirement, like the taxes are never going to go down. Like you're way better off putting it over in this policy that you can control. And then there's a death benefit for it. And then you have opportunity for finance. And so that happened a couple of years later, but that was awesome for me.
What kind of things have you financed? I know initially you financed some things around the clinic. Has there been other things that you financed using your policy?
I have. I absolutely, positively love motorcycles. And so I have, it's bad because I can't even be nice about it. Like I used to think I was such a great guy that I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't gamble, I'm not having unit affairs, I'm not going to Vegas, I'm not like, I'm like, yeah, I don't have an addiction. And then my wife was like, hey, how many motorcycles you got? Well, it's in double digits. And so, and that's one, so like I can beat myself up about that, but I also recognize like that's our family thing. And I have awesome memories with my wife, my boys doing, riding Baja and going to Moab every year and everything like that. So I financed some toys. I financed my studio. And so I've got a top of the line, like it's a kind of a ESPN quality studio where I make content. I'm religious about it. Like we're always putting out how-to videos, information things. And we do, that's what led to the radio show. And so I financed all of that inside of a platform that helps to educate people and then know about their options. I financed I financed a couple vehicles instead of going over to the bank and getting them. So it's nice to have paid off vehicles. That's a really nice feeling to not have that. And, and really whatever else I need. And so what was fun is coming out of 2019 and then using one of the policies, like I paid off all of our credit card debt, which gave me really, really good credit score. Cause I've have a couple cards that, I think I have, 5 or 6 cards that have, a $75,000 limit on them. And I didn't max out all of them, but I had 40, 50,000. I paid all of that off. And then my credit jumped. And now I have no credit card debt. Like this is one of the most exciting things that I can tell you or the audience of someone that has used unsecured credit to be really aggressive in business and now not having any credit card debt. Like it's, that's the most exciting thing I can tell you or the listeners.
That's awesome. So Dr. West, one of the things that you've talked about here on the podcast is one, you're trying to get more of your time back to be able to spend it with your family and everything there. How have you used your policy to get that? Or are you still in the works?
Well, how I answer that is, yes, I have totally used the policy so how I would answer that is to say, I haven't completely figured it out yet on how to maximize my best recurring revenue. I have had some really, by the way, I also used part of the policy to, I bought real estate. I really like, I have a lot of land. And the benefit of the land is I have some awesome assets. Of course, Jason, our last visit was saying, well, yeah, but it doesn't produce income. But most of the land that I have is like, I have 80, 90% equity in it because of how I bought it and structured it. So I've been really successful in building up a net worth statement or an asset, even though that's not exactly liquid, which for me is good. Like I don't want it to be liquid. So I've used my policy to do that. But the other thing that I've done is with my policy to get my time back is being able to create education programs and a way to educate people about healthcare that puts people inside of my office. So I've gone out and the saddest thing that I hear in my office is really, Dr. West, I wish I would have found you or someone like you years ago or a long time ago. So one of my frustrations is people just don't know about so many unique and cool and breakthrough services that literally turn around multiple sclerosis, and they turn around brain fog, and they turn around autoimmune disorders, and they turn around arthritis. And so for me, part of it is the video studio that I've put so much effort and work into is I get to educate people, but it also has a secondary benefit that it really supports my practice and my endeavors. I've also used the policy to create my own supplement line. I'm looking around for a bottle. And this has come with a lot of pain as well, trying to figure out which formulas work, how the labeling works, how to scale, stuff, because so many times people buy just horrible supplements on the market. Like this is one of my other frustrations, because, and let's just pick herbs for a second. What gives herbs medical value? It could be the stem, the root, the flower, the leaf. And so many times in medicine, people will come in and they'll be like, hey, Dr. West, I hope you're not going to recommend, St. John's wort or dandelion or something. Cause I tried it. And I'll be like, well, where'd you get it? And they'll say, well, I've got 10,000 pills at a big box chain store for 49 cents. And I'm like, well, I guarantee the active component of what you need is not in what you just bought. And so I've used my policy to go out and to investigate and try and create products that I know create healthcare for people. And then my focus right now is being able to offer educational programs and supplements and stuff, not just for the people in my office, but for the people that will listen to our message. And that's been a journey and a battle. And I believe I'm winning, but there's been a lot of lessons learned over there too.
I'm sure. So let's say in a perfect world, real quick, what needs to happen to give you the time back that you want?
Well, I would jokingly say winning the lottery ticket, but I guess that you have to like buy the tickets to win. So I don't buy the tickets, I'm never going to win. And of course, that's a facetious response. For me to scale what I'm trying to do is literally understanding the this consumer, and then having a smooth system, a smooth patient experience or a consumer experience of learning, liking, following, and trusting you into getting them to reach into their pockets and make a a commitment of buying something, whether it's a service, whether it's a program, whether it's a supplement, and then having that consumer not get lost in all of the crazy messaging that's happening out there. Like if you have a really good source of vitamin C that donates electrons to the body and you get people to invest in that, it's hard to keep them investing in that because there's so much, like we get hit with, I think it's 7,000 messages a day. And so being a voice and then having that experience where people don't go somewhere else is what I'm trying to figure out now.
Awesome.
Well, there's money's earned only two ways, and that's people at work and money at work. And you have expressed it several times. You work like a crazy man. I mean, you work ridiculous hours. I mean, you inspire me every time I talk to you. You're here, you're there, and you're doing everything you can. I mean, you're in Florida, then you're in Massachusetts, then you're in Arizona, you're back in Pocatello, and you're here. They're learning and doing. Yet that's always you at work. And I think one of the questions that what Scott was raising at, what would it take in order for you to then say, you know what, I can only open the clinic 2 days a week for the fact I have enough passive income that I'm okay with that? Is that ever crossed your mind, or what would that be? What your ideal be?
Well, and to answer that is, I do have a couple little assets that are growing, and again, this is in some real estate investments that they're not necessarily liquid, but it's creating a nice balance or asset on the balance sheet. I've taken what Scott was saying is I've really invested into it, and again, I hope I'm right, is in creating a system, a reoccurring revenue system with my consumers that is the business that I can put stuff out on the internet, and then people will have a reason to buy or purchase a program or a supplement that I'm not touching. Because as you point out, like I can't scale my office anymore. Like I can't work harder and I can't see more people in my office, which has given me an awesome way to recognize or an awesome way to make revenue. But I need to just be straight up honest with people. Like I haven't really figured out what Scott's asking me. I mean, and you've given me some ideas, but being brutally honest, like it's one area I need to focus on better. I don't have the best system over there yet.
Well, when you figure it all out, let the rest of us know. It's something we all are trying to figure out, and it's something that comes up to me daily. I have people always asking me, "Is like, well, how do I get my passive income to X, or how do I invest $10,000 or whatever?" And so, I appreciate you putting up with us as we put you under the gun a little bit, because I'm sure people are interested in what you're doing, to even outside of what we set up, because we put together syndications where a lot of it is turnkey and you just get a check in the mail every month. So
and Jason told me that on the last visit, and I have been turning that over and over in my mind, going, man, I need to do something like that, because I keep thinking I can make it inside of my store and my platform, and the radio show where I can be telling people, okay, that you do this. But just being transparent, like I need that, that syndication. Like I need to know that, and I need to put some money over there because it would be really good to have that showing up every month.
Well, we'll have to talk after the show because, yeah, we set up those things all the time. And anyway, that's the whole purpose, is to give time back to people. That's what's been so fun. I just got back from a trip from California with my wife, and we stayed a couple extra days because we had the ability to control our time. So, okay, well, let's 5 years from now, what does the practice look like? What does your life look like? What's coming down the pipeline?
So my 5-year plan is to transition my practice to my son. He will be starting practice in about 4.5 years. And so he'll be generation number 5. And I want to make sure that that transition is really smooth. And why I say that is because taking over a family business and working with my dad, and my dad was really, really focused on the business and having good outcomes. And my mom was really focused on running the books and seeing where everything was. And they didn't have a transition plan. And it was not smooth to do that. And I love my mom and dad. My mom and dad, me, and I have some siblings that were curious and invested in that whole process. And it was not smooth. My mom wanted I think unreasonable thing for me to buy the practice and take over. My dad was like, hey, I just don't want conflict. Like, I don't want to be involved in that. And it got to the point where I actually left and went out on my own and said, fine, like, then this isn't good transition. And luckily we had a family friend that was my dad's accountant that sat down with my mom and said, look, we got to make this possible because it's really valuable to Jason. He wants to buy it. I'm not sure that you can sell your name and some other things for nearly what you think to someone else. And by the way, it's really unique because Henry, my dad, he was taking care of really complicated stuff that you can't take someone out of school and put him in that pathway and have those outcomes. Like it would be really hard to practice that way. So going through and navigating that, like I really want to make sure that it's smooth, that there's a plan and a transition where he can live his sole purpose and that he can have a family legacy and everything to go into. And by the way, I've got, 3 other boys that want to do that are younger than him. And so I want to set up a system where, to the degree that we can have harmony in the sons and the daughter-in-laws getting along. And I don't have any daughter-in-laws, but I've seen this happen in other, brother practices and stuff like that. Like I really want to have that smooth. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is whether it's doing something inside of a syndicate, it's liquidating the land that I have put together and putting those inside of some recurring revenue systems. And then also as the direction that we're going into with my online business and everything, as it's growing, that should be able to replace my clinic income. And so my 5-year plan is like that. I'll be 55 and I want to be able to be able to ride off into the sunset. I want to be able to travel with my wife without making her go with her sister or her mom. And then at the same time, Scott, like for me, I am really blessed in this regard that I paid my dues. I did the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours and I don't have a job. I really love going to my office. Like it's not work to me. And so a lot of times when people say, hey, well, you should take a month off and go to out, like that feels like a prison sentence in many regards. Don't tell this to Maxine because she would love that. And I do travel with her and stuff like that, but I do really like it. So I still want to practice. I just want to have that smooth transition. I want to have a store, I want to be in you guys as your system where I'm getting a check every month.
Love it. Love it. Any final words for our listeners?
My words are I feel like I'm talking to my sons when I say, yeah, just you put your head down and you grind. And Mike Rowe, who did the Dirty Jobs series, like he gave a keynote in Washington DC a couple of years ago that I went to, and it's probably the best advice I've ever heard when he's talking about going out and finding these guys that were, cleaning out septic systems and tanning hides and being in slaughterhouses and making barrels, like all these jobs that look like really tough manual labor. And he said, want to know what is characteristic about those guys is that they go in and they work and the dirty, and then they go to their $1 million homes at night and go to bed. And he said, and this is what I've learned from that experience on all these episodes, is you find an opportunity and you teach yourself to be passionate about it. You don't follow your passions. And when he said that, I'm like, well, I'm telling my kids all the time, hey, you find out, like, follow your passions. He's like, no, you don't do that. And this is exactly what happened with me. Like, I thought I knew what I was going to do. I came into practice with my dad. It was really hard. I mean, I didn't think that I was going to make it. And he said, well, you don't know that you can help people, so you got to learn how to do that. And then he said, once you have crept past that threshold where you really like work, that's like winning the lottery. Like, I mean, I'm excited to go to work after we get back to Florida. I'm excited to go to work. I don't have a countdown or anything like that. And so for the listeners, what I would say, whether it's being a parent or whether it's, learning what your pathway is, you find you find the opportunity, and then you teach yourself to be passionate about that. And then you can be adventuresome and risky and stuff like that with other endeavors. At least this is what happened with me. Is I love what I do. I've been able to be really aggressive. I've done some great business wins. I've done some great business losses. I survived all of it because I like what I do. And so find an opportunity, put your head down, and recognize the other thing is it's never as easy as everybody makes it look to be. Like, I had a discussion with my son just about this, and he was saying, Dad, like, I see these people on social media and he's just got out of school and he's trying to find his pathway. And he's like, hey, it's so easy. I'm like, yeah, social media lies. So that's the other thing is I would tell people is they lie. Like, everybody has a path. Everybody has something that they're paying their dues about. It's never as easy as they make it look. So just stay on your path, find the opportunity, teach yourself to be passionate about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. West. We're super grateful for your wisdom and advice. Jason, any final words?
No, that's simply awesome. Thanks, Jason. It was always a pleasure. So it's just always a treat. Thank you.
Yes. And let's get together in December and teach me about the syndicate. And I like Scott's idea of putting stuff in there and having a check come back. Like, please tell me about that.
Okay, we'll do that. Maybe even we'll plan an evening and play cash flow or something like that. That's very educational. Have you ever played that by chance?
I have. Yeah, I've played it. It's been a long time.
Okay.
And I for sure need a refresher lesson. Absolutely.
Yeah. We'll plan a trip, come up there and see you, and we'll spend some time.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course. Thanks so much. Dr. West, if any of our listeners wanted to jump on and connect with you, how would they do so?
The best way to do it is to go to our website, westcliniconline.com. And we consistently take people that are out of hope and out of time and out of options, and we change their life. And I have the best job in the world. I know a lot of people that love what they do say that, but like, mine really is the best. I get to help people every day. It's awesome.
Awesome. And we will put it in the show notes down below, everyone. So check him out. Dr. West is the man. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. Remember, if you'd like to connect with us, hit us up on our Facebook group, Instagram, Twitter, or shoot us an email. All of the links are in the show notes down below. Remember, mastering your millions all starts with your mind and your team. Make sure they are the best. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Millions with Jason and Scott Henderson. Check the show notes for any links or contact information about today's guest. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes.